A homeless man sat shivering on a cold bench outside a veterans' hospital when a Navy SEAL commander walked past carrying an old framed photograph. The commander stopped, looked at the man's weathered face, then back at the photo. He held it up. The homeless veteran's trembling hand rose slowly, pointing at one face in the group. His voice cracked as he whispered those 3 words that would change everything. "That's me. Pash." His name was Robert Mitchell, 70 years old, white hair and beard frosted with morning dew, wearing the same red jacket over a faded t-shirt he'd worn for months. His expression never changed, always sad, always serious, the weight of decades pressing down on shoulders that once carried the pride of a nation. Nobody looked at him anymore. People walked past, like he was invisible, just another forgotten soul on a bench. The nurses coming in and out of the hospital avoided eye contact. Security guards watched him with suspicion. To them he was a problem waiting to happen, not a man who once stood between his country and its enemies. Robert had been living on the streets for 3 years. After his wife died, and medical bills consumed everything they'd saved, he lost the small apartment they'd shared for 40 years. No children, no family left to call. The VA had tried to help, but the paperwork, the appointments, the endless bureaucracy wore him down. He was tired. So tired. Most days he just sat on that bench, watching people come and go, remembering when he had somewhere to be, someone waiting for him at home. His hands shook now, not from cold alone, but from something deeper, something broken inside that no amount of warmth could fix. That morning started like every other. Robert woke on the bench before dawn, his back screaming in pain. A security guard named Derek approached young, maybe 25, with that look of disgust people get when they see someone they think has given up on life. Derek had warned Robert before about loitering. "You can't stay here all day, old man. This is private property." Robert never argued. He just nodded slowly, gathered his few possessions in a plastic bag, and moved to the other side of the building. But Derek was getting more aggressive, more annoyed that this homeless man kept coming back. People don't understand how invisible you become when you lose everything. Robert would sit there, watching young veterans go inside for their appointments, and he'd remember when he was one of them. Strong, purposeful, needed. Now he was just in the way. A woman had dropped her purse once, right in front of him, and when he picked it up to hand it back, she'd snatched it away, like he might contaminate it. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. She just hurried inside, clutching her purse tighter. That's what he'd become. Something to fear, something to avoid. Derek came over again that morning, more irritated than usual. "I told you yesterday, you need to leave. We've had complaints. You're making people uncomfortable." Robert looked up at him with those sad, serious eyes. "I'm not bothering anyone," he said quietly. "I just need to sit for a while." Derek's face reddened. "You think you can just camp out here? This isn't a homeless shelter. There are places for people like you." Robert's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't respond. He'd learned that arguing only made things worse. People like you. As if he wasn't a person anymore. As if his life, his service, his sacrifices meant nothing, because he didn't have a roof over his head. That's when Commander James Patterson arrived. He was there for a ceremony inside, honoring fallen SEALs from a mission decades ago. Patterson was in his 50s, decorated, respected, the kind of man whose presence commanded attention. He carried a large framed photograph, black and white, showing a SEAL team from 1975. Patterson had been researching the men in that photo for months, trying to track down survivors for the ceremony. Most were gone. Killed in action, died from illness, lost to time. But there was one face he couldn't identify. One man whose record seemed incomplete, whose fate remained unknown. Patterson walked past the bench, barely glancing at the homeless man huddled there. But something made him stop. Maybe it was instinct, maybe chance. He turned back, looked at Robert more carefully. There was something about the eyes, even beneath the exhaustion and defeat, something familiar. Patterson had seen thousands of faces in his career, but some you never forget. He stepped closer, holding the photograph. The morning light caught the glass as he angled it toward Robert. "Do you recognize anyone in this photo, sir?" Robert's hand stopped shaking. His eyes focused on the image, and for the first time in years, something changed in his expression. Not quite hope, but recognition. Memory. His finger, dirty and calloused, rose slowly and pointed to a young man in the back row. Third from the left. Strong jaw, intense eyes, the look of someone who'd seen things no person should see. "That's me," Robert whispered. His voice was stronger now, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "That's me, Operation Eagle Storm." Cambodia. 1975. Patterson's face went pale. He looked at the photo, then at Robert, then back again. The security guard Derek had stopped mid-sentence, confused by the sudden change in atmosphere. Patterson's hand trembled slightly as he lowered the photograph. "Robert Mitchell? You're Robert Mitchell?" Robert nodded slowly. "I was." Patterson's eyes filled with tears. He stood straighter, then did something that made Derek's jaw drop. He saluted a full, crisp military salute to the homeless man on the bench. "Sir, I've been looking for you for 6 months. Robert Mitchell. Navy SEAL. 3 tours. Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor. You pulled 7 men out of an ambush in the Mekong Delta. You were declared missing after a classified operation went wrong, then listed as retired with honors, but your records, they were incomplete. We couldn't find you." Patterson's voice broke. "The ceremony inside, it's for your team. Most of them are gone, but we wanted to honor them. We wanted to honor you. We thought you were dead." Derek stood frozen, his face draining of color. The complaints he'd filed, the way he'd spoken to this man, the disrespect. Robert remained seated, his sad expression unchanged, but his eyes held something different now. Not vindication, not anger, just quiet acknowledgement. "I didn't want to be found," he said softly. "After my wife died, after I lost everything, I didn't feel like that person anymore. That man in the photo, he was someone else. Someone who mattered." Patterson shook his head firmly. "You still matter. You've always mattered." He turned to Derek, his voice sharp. "This man is a decorated Navy SEAL. He's a hero. And he's been sitting out here freezing, while we walked past him like he was nothing." Derek's face flushed with shame. "Sir, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I thought he was just..." Patterson cut him off. "Just what? Just a human being who deserved basic respect? You don't need to know someone's history to treat them with dignity." Word spread quickly through the hospital. Within minutes, staff members poured outside. Nurses who'd avoided eye contact now stood with hands over their mouths. Doctors who'd walked past without a glance now approached with reverence. The hospital administrator, a retired Army colonel, came out personally. "Mr. Mitchell, we had no idea. Please, come inside. We have services for veterans. We can help you." Robert sat there, overwhelmed, as if the world had suddenly remembered he existed. Patterson made calls. Within an hour, representatives from the VA arrived, not with forms and bureaucracy, but with action. A hotel room was arranged immediately. Medical care scheduled, benefits that Robert had been entitled to all along, but had fallen through the cracks, were expedited. Patterson personally ensured that every resource available would be directed toward helping Robert rebuild his life. "This man gave everything for his country," Patterson told the assembled staff. "We will not let him spend another night on the streets." But something else happened that day, something more important than the immediate help. Derek approached Robert, his eyes red. "Sir, I need to apologize." There's no excuse for how I treated you. I was wrong. I was cruel. Robert looked at him with those sad, serious eyes. You treated me the way you saw me. I understand. Derek shook his head. No, sir. I should have seen you as a person regardless. You've taught me something today, something I'll never forget. The ceremony inside was postponed briefly. When it resumed, Robert Mitchell sat in the front row, clean clothes provided by the hospital staff, his red jacket folded carefully beside him. Patterson stood at the podium, holding that photograph high. This man, he said, pointing to the young SEAL in the back row, saved lives when most people would have run. He served with honor when the world wasn't watching, and when life knocked him down, he endured with quiet dignity. We failed him. But today, we begin to make that right. Robert listened as Patterson recounted the mission, the ambush, the 7 men who came home because one SEAL refused to leave anyone behind. Men in the audience, some of them those very survivors, stood and saluted. Tears streamed down weathered faces. One man approached Robert after the ceremony, gripping his hand. You carried me 2 miles with a bullet in your shoulder. I have grandchildren because of you. I've looked for you for years. Robert's expression remained serious, sad even, but he squeezed the man's hand back. I'm glad you made it home. The hospital established a new protocol that day. Every person entering their facility would be treated with respect, regardless of appearance or circumstance. Derek requested to lead a training program for security staff about recognizing and assisting homeless veterans. The administrator approved funding for an outreach program, ensuring that no veteran would sit outside their doors without being offered help. One photograph, one moment of recognition, changed an entire system. Robert Mitchell moved into veteran housing within a week. His benefits were restored, his medical care prioritized, but more than the material help, something else returned. People saw him again. Not as a problem, not as something to avoid, but as a person. A hero, a man who'd given everything and asked for nothing in return. Patterson visited regularly, and they'd sit together, 2 warriors from different generations talking about service, sacrifice, and the brothers they'd lost. The story spread beyond that hospital. News outlets picked it up. A homeless veteran revealed to be a decorated SEAL, but those who understood knew it wasn't really about the revelation. It was about how easily we forget, how quickly we dismiss. How a man who once stood between his country and danger could become invisible, simply because he fell on hard times. Robert's red jacket became a symbol, a reminder that everyone has a story, everyone has worth, and the measure of a society is how it treats those who seem to have nothing left to give. Months later, Robert stood before a group of young SEALs in training. Patterson had invited him to speak. Robert looked at those eager faces and said something they'd never forget. The uniform comes off, the medals get put away. Life happens, and sometimes it knocks you down so hard you don't think you can get back up. But your worth isn't in what you wear or where you sleep. It's in here. He tapped his chest. Never forget that. And never forget that the person you walk past without seeing might be the one who once stood where you're standing now.